The SS3 from SlickTrick is a one-piece machined stainless steel broadhead. Since it's a one-piece machined head, it obviously doesn't have replaceable blades. One question we get a lot is, how do I sharpen these blades? If you're shooting them in a target in practice, or if you've run them through an animal, you might dull them up a little bit. I'm going to show you a couple of easy ways to put a factory edge back on these heads. If you're an outdoorsman and hunter like most of us are, you probably have some sort of knife sharpening stone. That's the tool that I like to use that gives me the most consistent edge, I think, but you can also use a piece of fine grit sandpaper on a hard flat surface. If you try to do it with a broadhead on the arrow, I find I lose a little bit of control of my angle. You can see the design of these is machined perfectly flat on each side, so every 120 degrees you have a perfectly flat surface where you're sharpening two sides at one time. So you can lay the broadhead exactly flat on there, but I find with the arrow I lose a little bit of control and maybe even lose a little bit of consistency in my grind. And I don't want to take off a lot of material, I'm just looking to polish up these edges again. So with it being a one-piece machine, there's almost little finger grooves on each blade, and you want to be really careful. You could go back and forth. I don't. I like to go like I'm sharpening a knife, go in the same direction the whole time, but you can easily find the perfectly flat surface right there, and then I can just take nice soft strokes and just try to trim off just a little bit of that stone each time. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on there. I can rotate it 120 degrees, set it back perfectly flat. That way I'm putting a really nice consistent polish on each one of those blades. You can spend as much time as you want here. You can get them as sharp as you want, but again, the idea is not to take off a lot of material. You're just wanting to put that factory edge back on that broadhead. If you don't have a stone and you decide to use a piece of sandpaper, like I said earlier, use something with a really fine grit. The goal is to not take off a lot of material. The goal is to just put a finish edge back on this head. So I would recommend putting it on a piece of glass or a granite countertop. And again, make sure you got a firm grip on it. You go the same direction, just lay it nice and flat on the sandpaper and just take nice even strokes. And you can tell this is a lot more gritty and it's taken off more material. So you may not have to spend as much time if you use sandpaper versus a nice polishing stone for a knife. Just rotate 120 degrees, make sure the head's nice and flat. Take your time because these things can get you if you're not careful. Spend as much time as you want here to put that sharp edge back on there, and you're ready to go back to the field. Again, take your time when sharpening these heads. The goal is to not take off a lot of material. You don't want to change the weight of your head. You just want to polish up those edges again, whether you're using the stone or the sandpaper. For the SS3, any questions that you might have, or to see all the other broadheads in the SlickTrick lineup, head over to slicktrick.net or visit your local dealer.